All right, we are a couple minutes past the hour, so let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining. Today we are going to talk about how ServiceNow HR Service Delivery can support the entire employee journey from hiring to day-to-day needs to growing within your organization all through the entire employee lifecycle, specifically focusing on hiring and growth experiences, the new capabilities as part of HR service delivery. So a little bit of housekeeping. First, we have a jam-packed session today. So if possible, please use the Q&A function within the webinar to submit any questions. We have some folks on the folks here to help answer those questions as we go through the presentation. And please do not use the chat. Use the Q&A function. Second, this session will be recorded and shared following this event. So it will be on our YouTube channels, on our community pages. You'll be able to access the presentation and the recording. So feel free to sit back, relax, enjoy the presentation and not worry about taking notes or anything right now. You can always go back and review this later. And then finally, after this session, you will be prompted to fill out a short survey. It's very helpful for myself and the team here as we think about how we can improve these sessions, what's going well, and any sort of topics or areas that you would love us to cover in future sessions. We reviewed this feedback after every single presentation, and it helps guide and make these presentations and these webinars feel solve the problems that you folks need solving. So my name is Scott Smith. I'm on our outbound product management team. I'm joined today by my colleague Melissa, who will also be presenting and is also part of the HR Service Delivery outbound product management team. So one thing to call out is if you are interested in seeing more HR Service Delivery Academy series, how to register for more, or to see what else is happening in the broader ServiceNow landscape through our webinar series live on ServiceNow, feel free to use this QR code to see the schedule. We have programs and from across ServiceNow, IT, HR, customers experience, runs the gambit to make sure that you folks can deploy, adopt, and achieve your value faster leveraging ServiceNow. So today's agenda. We're going to start talking about what constitutes HR service delivery as of our Zurich release about a month ago. And then we'll get into the specifics of our hiring experiences and our growth experiences as part of this HR service delivery offering. So, excuse me. So folks that joined us for our What's New in Zurich session, this might be a bit of a refresher, but it's important to level set what these changes are and how it impacts all of our customers. So before the Zurich release, our HR service delivery capabilities were fairly siloed. It was really focused on the day-to-day service delivery needs through Employee Center Pro, our Manager Hub experience, and things like employee relations, our journeys capabilities, agent support, alumni, so on and so forth. Over time, customers asked us to start leaning into areas across the employee life cycle, things like career growth, and helping employees find opportunities within their organization or to upskill themselves and grow within their careers, as well as help the organization understand what are what skills and capabilities does my organization and my employees have to help us achieve business results. So a couple of years ago, we released a product called Talent Development, focused specifically on that, with the ability to set aspirations, find mentorships, have career conversations, define growth plans, and imbibe learning and skills into the flow of work. And unsurprisingly, customers asked us to continue moving further left into that employee experience and thinking about how we can help support the simplified and seamless experience at the talent acquisition and the hiring process as well. So with Zurich, we release capabilities focused around the candidate experience, the applicant experience, making it easier and more seamless to manage requisitions and interviews, as well as a personalized experience for finding internal roles within your organization. However, these were all designed initially as separate capabilities and separate product lines. But when we met with our customers and discussed their challenges, it became very clear that our customers needed support in all of these areas, and that limiting them to individual product lines really limited the discoverability and the ability for our customers to to find new opportunities that ServiceNow can support them. So as of Zurich, all of these capabilities now fall under HR service delivery. So one SKU, one product line, designed to help touch every aspect of the employee lifecycle, all powered by the ServiceNow AI platform. So what does this new streamlined HR service delivery packaging look like? So it starts with our standard experience. This is really focused on setting that foundation, the case and knowledge management, employee document management, as well as giving an experience for our employees and our managers through Employee Center Pro and Manager Hub. At the professional level, we are expand those capabilities into more specialized experiences, whether it's employee relations, support for our alumni, as well as supporting the hiring and growth experiences that we're going to be talking about today. And then, of course, at the enterprise level is where we connect it all together with employee journeys for things like onboarding, offboarding, leaves of absence, so on and so forth. So much more streamlined. There are now 2 additional add-on SKUs that you can layer on top of this. Process mining, which comes at the ServiceNow platform level, and then specifically for HR service delivery for our pro and enterprise customers, we can layer on Now Assist AI capabilities with our Pro Plus and Enterprise Plus SKUs. So everything we talk about today is going to be in that pro level, whether either the pro level or the pro plus level, depending on whether it's an AI capability. So in terms of then how should our customers and how should you all think about how we can take advantage of these, or how we can think about how ServiceNow is developing these and how we can deploy these at our organization? It's fairly straightforward. We think about how the employee life cycle, from how you welcome them into the organization up through the applicant experience, all the way through their first day and into their first ramp up 30, 60, 90 days. And then we have a long period of empowering them with the support and knowledge that they need through self-service and AI-powered capabilities to make their lives, once they're in their role, as easy and simplified as possible so that they can focus on driving the business forward for the roles that they were hired for. But then, unsurprisingly, employees want an opportunity to grow within their careers. So then we're thinking about how they can grow within their organization, upskill themselves, find new mentorship opportunities, find new career paths for themselves, all in partnership with their managers and their leaders to make it a cohesive experience. And then eventually, folks will leave our organizations, and we want that process of offboarding and ongoing alumni support to be as simple and seamless as the rest of their experience with the organization has been. So when we think about that, we want to think about how we can drive productivity from hire to retire by connecting the systems and experiences across HR and the enterprise to help employees be more productive, managers, mobilize managers to be that first line of defense within our organizations, and drive efficiency within our HR and HR operations parts of the business. So employees can all the way through, when they join, they have a seamless experience. They have that they are empowered for day-to-day employee self-service and support. They have the ability to personalize their career with actionable next steps, not just, theoretical next steps, and then guidance whenever they leave the organization. Managers are supporting them every step of the way, from the hiring process, making it as simple as possible to opening a requisition, do the interviews, and get the right candidate in the door. We also want them to support their teams when they have questions or need support from the organization, and have the insight to actually lean in when necessary. And dovetailing with that, help them actually grow to achieve business results, and find the next opportunity in their career. And then as they leave, they have insight into this in every step of the process. And then for our HR teams, we want it to be an efficient process throughout that entire employee life cycle. Whether it is simplifying the collaboration process with managers to get that person hired, whether it's the ability to leverage AI and capabilities to drive more efficient HR operations for our case management and employee self-service. And then we also want to think about how learning and skills and those sorts of things can be part of day-to-day work life and not necessarily an afterthought. And then, of course, as they're leaving the organization, again, have that streamlined and efficient process. And then when they are alumni, still be able to deliver them the service delivery experiences they need. So what I should say is all of this is available for our HR Service Delivery V6 customers. So if you are a customer and don't think you're on the latest SKU that was released in with our Zurich release in September, please reach out to your account team if these areas of support are of interest to you, and have a conversation about how you can get moved to that new HR Service Delivery version 6. And with that, let's dive into the meat of today's discussion and talk in more detail about what hiring experiences are and how they really help welcome employees before they're even employees, right at the top of the funnel. So for that, I'll pass it to my colleague, Melissa.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Scott. And I will go ahead and share so that you don't have to drive. Perfect. So, hello, everybody. We're going to talk about hiring experiences specifically first. And this is, again, one of the newer additions to our HRSD professional and enterprise that Scott has just kind of walked us through. And really, we want to help kind of understand what this is and how it fits into some of those existing systems that we're already using for hiring, like an applicant tracking system, like some of the additional tools that we tend to use in each of these different hiring phases. So we're just going to spend a minute just talking through kind of where we started. So initially with us kind of considering this hiring experience, we really focused on kind of two key personas within this. The first one is that hiring manager. Typically, we see hiring managers, repeatedly kind of in this pattern of lacking support, not understanding where they need to go to start some of these basic processes, to keep things going through those processes. And we really had kind of an ask from customers for some support in that area, specifically where managers have one place where they can go to kind of get those pieces of the hiring process started and managed. It was a big gap for them. They were often having to learn other systems or remember that they had to go to other systems, and there's a lot of time that gets spent in that when really there's a need to hire, and there's usually some urgency behind that. The second was then an extension of our employee persona, which is that employee just before they join the organization, where they happen to be an applicant. And so really the gaps in those experiences, right? I think many of us can probably have a similar experience where we've applied for a role at a company or been invited to apply for a role at a company and then have heard nothing, or the process then feels a little unsure. And it leaves us with a lot of questions. And so really supporting, those kinds of very key personas, and also those key moments in an employee and in a manager's journey that ultimately end up being that full employee journey that we've been discussing. So really kind of in these 4 phases, we really focus on kind of taking some key jobs in these with our hiring experiences. So the first is in that planning phase. Hiring managers, they now have that support to create and submit a job requisition and then collaborate back and forth on that with the recruiting team to be able to get that approved and then shared over with the necessary systems that are needed to then distribute that and receive the applications. That sourcing section, that's where we, again, have that integration point. So we're sharing the approved requisition information with an applicant tracking system for that posting and for those applications. And then as we're sharing that information, we're also pulling applicant and application information back into ServiceNow so that we can then surface that for managers, surface that for the additional people who are participating in the interview process, and then also continue to power the rest of that experience for our applicants. We then have, kind of that interview into the hire phase. So applicants are going to be provided that external kind of portal link. We're going to dive into all of this in a lot more detail, but at a high level, they're then kind of supported through the rest of that interview and evaluation process. And then we're connecting that into our pre-hire and our onboarding experience. So we can move them all the way through, again, from that very beginning of once they've applied all the way through to as their employees and then continuing on with their growth path. So at a high level, we talked about kind of 2 of these. We talked about the manager and we talked about the applicant. There is support for the recruiting team as well in this. So with the hiring tab in Manager Hub, this is where we are giving that support for managers. It's in a place that's familiar to them, that they are already using for their day-to-day work. And this is where they can really, again, have that one place to be able to start and come back to for hiring. The recruiter workspace is that workspace where we're getting into those deeper activities as we're going through the processes of a job requisition. So once we have people who have applied, as we're doing that outreach, as we're having that communication, as we're reviewing applications, and then scheduling for interviews and asking for feedback, that's the space that's supporting that for the recruiting team. And then we have that applicant center. So that's the external applicant portal that we provide for applicants to be able to track their progress, move forward in the interviewing process, be able to complete tasks. And again, we'll go into each of these in a little bit more detail to kind of break down what we have in each of these capabilities. And then we also want to highlight just some of the really key jobs and the points that we're solving for in this process. So again, we've touched on that job requisition workflow being something that has had a lack of support. So again, being able to shorten that amount of time that it's taking to open a job requisition by really streamlining that for managers to have one place and one resource to go to and connecting that to workflows and the power that we have for the AI platform. We also have an AI agent available for this to be able to help that be more conversational and even more quick than just streamlining that within a workflow itself. We also have kind of the 2 parts of interview management, which is the interview scheduling piece and then the interview feedback piece. So actually getting everything on the calendars. And this is another area where we have an existing AI agent, as we mentioned, in kind of that plus view, where we can actually help and continue to automate that interview scheduling process even further. And then the feedback portion. So once an interview's been conducted and completed, are we gathering feedback on that that we're then able to compare and then use to action moving forward on? So just going through each of these in a little bit more detail so you can get an understanding of exactly kind of what these may look like or how everybody's interacting with them. For our hiring managers, this is that hiring tab. So we can see a couple of things here that I'll call out. This is where they happen to open that job requisition and they can very clearly see where their requisitions are that they're either assigned to or that they've created in the process. So they're not having to ping an ask or question without having that information. They can self-serve that information and also know when they are maybe holding something up in the process and they need to take an action. This is also where we can serve dedicated knowledge content to them that is focused on hiring. So if we have articles that are about the hiring process, If we have any information about specific policies or things like that that we want to include here, that's often something that we have found to be very helpful. Rather than them having to go to an existing system like going to their applicant tracking system that may not support that piece, that they may not be familiar with. This is kind of their one place to be able to say, hey, I haven't hired in a while. Maybe it's my first time hiring as a new manager, and I'm unsure of where to start. So being able to share that recommended content and those resources here, again, gives them the support and the empowerment that they need in order to start this process, be guided through it a little bit, and then come back to this when they have any questions about where anything happens to be. So this is within Manager Hub. Again, there's that new section for hiring. Now moving forward on this, let's see. Here we go. So this is another place where we have an available AI agent for helping create that job requisition process. So there's a couple of portions of that, right? Gathering the input, helping improve existing job descriptions if there are additional pieces of information that need to be gathered. Those are kind of what we happen to see are some key activities in this part of the process. So this is where we can have Now Assist really help with that and be able to have a conversation back and forth with a hiring manager. So rather than them needing to fill out that form or kind of go through that process, they can be assisted in that process to go through this, and we can create the requisition, make any of those changes or generate any of those job descriptions that are necessary. And then we can continue to progress that forward in the workflow. So this is a great option for, kind of an initial start in kind of the AI space for people to be able to kind of take and have their hiring managers have that support at the very beginning of the process. Now, this is that recruiter workspace. We've put a couple people here. We've seen some people extend this into some different leaders, depending on who's doing what role at your company. We know everybody hires a little differently. So again, this is kind of that more expansive workspace to be able to see requisitions, track your workload of what's happening, understand where I need to kind of go and move into my next phase of work. And really plan kind of my day and where I'm going to go next. So a couple of things about the workspace. There's a lot of flexibility in how I'd like to see this work. We know everybody does everything a little differently. Some people like to go through most urgent to least urgent. Some people like to just go through each requisition and just be able to move through one completely. So there's a lot of flexibility in how you'd like information to be shown and in the way that you'd like to work, which really helps to improve and drive that productivity and that efficiency for each person individually. This is also where we're seeing, again, that approval process move through. We have deeper views into each of the applicants and their applications for each of the roles. And this is where we're orchestrating each of those different pieces. So the setting up of interviews, being able to make sure that we have everybody on the hiring team created and assigned for the process. This is, again, kind of that center where we're working out from. And within kind of the recruiter workspace is where we have that interview scheduling and that interview feedback piece of functionality. So with interview scheduling, we have the ability to set phases of interviews. So maybe it's just a really straightforward one-on-one. Maybe it's a couple of phases with a combination of a screening or a combination of a technical panel, depending on the role you're hiring for. So being able to set that and have a structured format that we follow, and then being able to gather the availability for each of the interview panelists and the applicants themselves to find times and then present those times to an applicant for selection. So that self-scheduling piece is there and available for applicants to do. They're able to do that through their applicant center, which we'll get to. They're able to do that also through email as well. So it's something that can be very quick for them without having to log into a system to go back and forth. And then also the scheduling, the notifications and the reminders, all of the automation portions of that are here as well. And just on these two screens, we can see that we have some of that more real-time availability with our calendaring integrations with Microsoft Outlook. That's where we can see and gather that availability before we share that with an applicant. And then we also have, again, flexibility in what we share, what that looks like, and how much information we'd like to make sure we include in this process to be able to be shared with applicants. And then there's that feedback portion. So that second part of interview management, where once an interview has been completed, are we helping panelists be able to provide quality feedback and to be able to get that in a timely way so that we can continue to move that process through efficiently? So they'll be reminded that they've completed an interview and then prompted to be able to provide that feedback. And then this feedback is able to be compared by those who are on the recruiting team, hiring managers in their manager hub in that hiring tab, so that they're able to have that comparison, make those quick decisions, and be able to continue to move that process forward. This is another place where we do have one of our AI agents available for our interview scheduling, really kind of focusing on helping get things through more speedy and more efficiently, and reducing the amount of time that it would take to kind of orchestrate that process. This is a prime example of where AI can continue to help that automation go even further as we're looking at calendar slots and we're understanding who's available when and kind of helping through that process. This is a big space where we know that there's a lot of improvement and time saving to be had, and it can help reduce that time to hire in the process as we have more support here. So a couple of kind of components of what kind of make up this agent is gathering the context. What are we doing? Who are we asking to participate in this? For how long? Being able to compare those calendars and be smart about what it is that we need to do, and then creating and crafting the communication that we would then send out in addition to that. So these are all things that then can be assisted with and then shared out to, again, reduce the amount of time that we take in part of the process that tends to take the most time in our hiring flow. And then we have our applicant center. So this is our external portal. So similar if you've seen or used our employee center for our employees. This is one that's for external applicants. We invite them in with what we have lovingly called our magic link. We know, if you've heard me say this before, sometimes our IT and security teams don't love to hear the word magic when we talk about security and identity. But this is a time authenticated link. So this is ServiceNow platform security functionality that we have used to take advantage of a much more frictionless process to be able to be securely logged in to an external portal. And this means that we can deliver content that we don't necessarily want public, but we don't necessarily want to add the burden of having to create a username and password, save that in a browser or a notebook somewhere just to remember where I am in the process. And so we will invite them, we'll send them a message that they've been invited to their applicant center, and we'd love to, bring them in and take them along on this journey. So without that kind of barrier to entry, this is again where they can come in and they can see very personalized content, branded content that you can adjust and build out as what you'd like to share. So a combination of articles, a combination of potentially, if there's information about benefits or further policies, videos about what it's like to work at your company, maybe instructions on the process itself and what to expect. All of that can then be centralized in one place for them to have that support. They can also see a timeline of where they're at in their process for each of their applications with the company. They can schedule their interviews. This is also where, again, if there's any tasks that they are assigned, maybe there's a document that they need to sign, maybe there's a task that they need to complete or something that they need to upload, like a certification. This is a place where they can do that and we can gather that information. They can also have that back and forth communication with the hiring team as well. So this is, again, continuing that employee process just a little bit further left. When they go through this process, we can then have them move into that pre-hire and that onboarding experience. So for them, once they've applied, they're then moving through one seamless experience through the rest of their employee journey. We also, again, want to touch on one of the things that, as they've moved forward in that process and they are an employee, there are different opportunities that may be available for them. So we do have a capability called Opportunity Marketplace. This is where they can, discover if there are different internal jobs that they'd like to apply for, not just full-time roles, but maybe there's a potential gig or a project that's more short-term, or something that they could volunteer for. They can get recommendations from the system, and they can then kind of track their status, save different jobs to view. So we're continuing to support that hiring and that growth journey within, the next stages of their employee journey, even after they've applied. And then kind of the last piece to touch on, we do have out-of-box dashboards that come in the hiring experience. A lot of times we're looking at metrics that take a minute to report on, or that we don't have all of the data sources to be able to report accurately on some of this information. So we have two categories of metrics that we track out of box. One is web workload. How are my requisitions distributed across my team? How many do I have? Where are they in the process? And do I have any that are really taking a long time? The other is performance. How are those doing, and how are we filling them over time? What's the average amount of time that it's taking once we say that we've submitted a requisition to when it's opened? What's the amount of time that it's taking once we receive an application all the way to when they're hired? So being able to slice and dice in a couple of those different ways. And then also being able to understand where we're spending the most time in each of those applications. These are two categories of metrics that we have out of box, and then those can be taken further to see more specific data that you'd like to see visualized. So one last touch before we move into growth. We often get a lot of questions, right, around integrations, this being a piece where we are using integrations with applicant tracking systems to help power this so that hiring managers and employees have a very seamless experience. So we do have a connector. This helps, include kind of those data sets and the import set to import that data from another system to be able to help with that kind of bidirectional integration that we talked about. So being able to send job requisition information over and have application and applicant information returned back are some pieces that we have. We've linked some more documentation and information on this that we'll share out. We do have kind of out of box. We've included some of the information in the existing integration that we have with Workday. So those Workday recruiting pieces are one that we started with out of box. We know that that's one that's really prominent that people use often. So we also have, kind of in this other category, things that power some of the experiences we've talked about. So in interviewing, being able to connect that through Zoom, being able to connect that through Outlook, the communication channels, so being able to update people and notify them through Microsoft Teams. There's information about that as well that we'll share with some of these. And then there are additional integrations that we have in the ServiceNow platform that if you've taken advantage of or if you've used, you know that there's a lot of ways that that can be taken and kind of grown and stretched. So just a quick highlight on those pieces for the integrations. And at this point, I think this is now the time where we get to talk about what happens after you've been hired, move into your growth experience.
Exactly. Thank you, Melissa. That was fantastic. And a lot of good questions in the chat as well. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. As Melissa just alluded to, once you join the organization and are part of your company, oftentimes it's very quickly employees start thinking about how can I grow in my career. Managers thinking about how I can help my employees grow, and leaders can understand, where do my skills and my talent lie across my organization so we can make strategic business decisions. And that's where ServiceNow growth experiences as part of HR service delivery comes into play. So this is probably a familiar feeling for a lot of the folks on this call in terms of how do you grow in your career. It feels like there's so much. There's employees looking to grow, managers looking to help them, leaders trying to understand what's going on across sometimes very complex, large matrix organizations, and you end up bouncing around between different portal experiences, chat experiences, so on and so forth. But it all kind of still leads to this rat's nest, so to speak, of departments and systems not working together that are leading to things like higher attrition, lack of visibility, and poor business performance. But we all know we need to do these things. We need to upskill. We need to reskill. We need to imbibe growth and mentorship opportunities. We have to understand employee performance and connect learning and do all of these things. But it feels so complicated when there is a system for each one of these. Well, that's where ServiceNow comes into play. ServiceNow growth experiences really help the employees and leaders make smarter decisions around career development to actually drive the business forward. So just like ServiceNow HR Service Delivery sits on top of an HCM, we can sit on top of a bunch of other systems as well that have this sort of data, like an ATS, the HCM learning systems, but then we can funnel it all up into one great experience through the ServiceNow platform. So employees have a dedicated experience for helping them find new opportunities and grow within their careers. Managers have the ability to understand what's going on with their team and support those career growth aspirations. And then leaders can get a holistic 360 view into the skills and capabilities of their organization. These all come through dedicated experiences built within ServiceNow, designed for each one of these key personas through multimodal omni-channel support. And then there's applications that layer on top of these for aspirations, growth, orchestrating growth plans, learning, and mentorship opportunities, all trying to drive career growth, learning and development, ramp up performance management, upskilling, and reskilling. So just to make this point a little bit more clear, we're not trying to necessarily replace these systems, but we're trying to make sure that employees and all the other folks within your organization aren't jumping between 10 different systems to do something as simple as find learning, align my skills with career growth opportunities, have, career conversations with my manager. Let's simplify all of that with the ServiceNow growth experiences. So what are some of the use cases we're trying to drive? So for employees, we're trying to drive better career mobility. We want personalized learning and development. We want managers to support that employee development as well as monitor that team performance, as well as drive skills and growth activities with insights about what their team is doing. We want leaders to have insights of their workforce skills and development opportunities so that they can make critical decisions about where their business is going, and ground that in the reality of the capabilities of their talent pools today. And then teams within HR, like learning and development, how they can have a modern learning platform that actually meets employees where they are and drives training completion and better opportunities for employees to actually complete the learning and development that is either mandated or part of their career growth where they're already spending their time. And then we also have organizations that are thinking about how they can become a skill-based organization, and we're supporting those HR teams as they are looking to house that skills data from multiple different sources and harmonize that data into one system of engagement through ServiceNow. So what are those applications I referred to? So within growth experiences, there's a few main applications. First is aspirations. This allows employees to set a goal for themselves, an aspiration about where they want their career to grow. They can set individual aspirations based off of what next role they want, what future skills they want, any capabilities or skills that they want to just continue enhancing. They can set those aspirations directly within ServiceNow, and then we will automatically, leveraging artificial intelligence, recommend things like what's a good course for them, what's a skill they should focus on, and what maybe down the road is a good internal opportunity for them. In addition, we support a learning experience directly within ServiceNow. So we understand that organizations have learning systems, LMSs, and so many organizations might have multiple different LMSs. Our goal is to streamline that experience into one great simplified experience for employees, managers, and everyone involved to understand what learnings that they want to do, quickly identify what learning makes the most sense for them based off of their skills and their capabilities. and then even give managers the ability to assign learnings to their teams so that they can drive upskilling opportunities across the organization. So really what we're trying to do is get learning not as, that separate thing when you get that email that you have to do this learning or something along those lines, and then you're going to some LMS that you've never used before. Instead, let's integrate and streamline that all into one experience so that employees are completing the training, managers understand where they are, and learning and development teams are actually tracking and have one place to track, how impactful this learning actually is for their organization. We have another application within here for focus on mentorship opportunities. When we talk with customers, employees having the ability to find the right folks within their organization to build connections with and help grow their career is a challenge. There's a lot of moving parts that go into finding the right mentor. And with ServiceNow, we can leverage skills, role, part of the organization to say, hey, Scott, it looks like Bob would be a really good mentor based off of where you want to go in your career, based off of what he's done, the skills he has, and let's actually set up a defined mentorship opportunity directly within a modern engagement platform, so that it's not just dependent on employees, through word of mouth or finding folks themselves, but let's get them a programmatized opportunity with AI underlying it to match the right employees with the right mentorship opportunities to help them grow in their careers. And then there's a couple big applications within here as well. A couple more, excuse me. First is our conversations application. So career growth conversations have for so long been siloed to, Outlook meetings or one-on-one meetings that don't actually drive action afterwards, or it doesn't necessarily get captured and create a sense for the employees and the managers that they're on the same page. With ServiceNow, we can actually capture and track that information directly within ServiceNow. So we can schedule and manage the feedback of during career growth conversations, whether it's weekly, quarterly, the semi-annually, whenever it makes sense for your organization. But let's give the managers a place to actually think about how they want to drive a good career growth conversation with their employees, and then give employees the ability to track that information as well, and not just let it go into a black hole after that one-on-one or that quarterly growth conversation. And then finally, what ties this all together is a workflow called growth plans. So a growth plan you can leverage within ServiceNow to actually take all of those steps, learning, mentorship, conversations, aspirations, all into a logical workflow to define so that employees and managers are on the same page about, hey, I have a goal to become, a manager, and these are the actual steps I'm going to be taking over the next, 3, 6, 9, 12 months to actually achieve those good results. I'm going to find the right learnings. I'm going to find the right mentorship opportunities. I'm going to have continuous coaching conversations with my managers and others so that I can actually progress through my career growth journey. And again, trying to drive actual action and workflows through this, all within one system of engagement, as opposed to doing this in 5 different systems and not having a logical procession of how I can actually grow within my career. And unsurprisingly, AI is imbibed throughout this process as well, throughout each of these applications. So for leaders and managers, we have an AI assistant that can actually help with a conversational experience, understand what are the skills and capabilities within my organization. Managers can also get insight and recommendation for collecting feedback for their employees. So let's say you're having a career growth conversation, we can actually support gathering that 360 feedback for those employees, so that we can actually have a holistic conversation around career growth. And we can also help support the actual logistics of planning those growth conversations. Oftentimes, when we talk with managers and such, they spend a lot of time just scheduling those, thinking about when's the right time, aggregating the right information. and scheduling, actually, going into Outlook and scheduling that meeting. Let's make it super easy with an AI powered assistant that can actually help plan that growth conversation, find the right times, recommend the right order of meeting with your employees, and actually help drive really powerful growth conversations. Allow the manager to focus on actually having a conversation with their employee and not the logistics around it. And then for employees, is they're thinking about growth plans. Of course, we have a great AI assistant to recommend how to leverage text based prompts to just simply create an entire growth plan just with a few sentences in natural language. And we will, of course, be adding more AI capabilities over the coming months and years. So as I just discussed, one of our main AI agents is for career growth conversations. So for managers, like I said, planning employee growth conversations is a tedious and arduous task, especially if you have a large group of folks. So let's leverage AI to support that experience. So find those time slots, schedule the meetings, generate an employee summary, and get a list of talking points so that you can actually have a really direct conversation and a really targeted conversation with your employee. And then also get resources for our managers to prepare for effective growth conversations. Maybe they're a new manager, they haven't done this before. Let's provide some knowledge so that they can actually have a great career conversation. And it leverages things like proactive prompts and Manager Hub as part of the experience so that it's seamless with the rest of their work life. And as I said, for employees, it's super easy to create a growth plan and tie all of these pieces together into one logical workflow, leveraging Now Assist to just simply leverage natural language to talk through what they're looking for, and then allow Now Assist to create that and draft that plan for them. So it makes it really easy and seamless for employees to not have to spend too much time thinking about the logistics of how do I add this training? Do I find a mentor? Let's let the system do that for us so that they can actually just focus on completing those steps and actually growing within their careers. So those are the applications. Those are the individual apps. They can all work together. They can be turned on as standalone experiences, whatever makes the most sense for individual organizations. Like if we have some organizations that says, hey, our first foray is mentorship. We're just going to focus on mentorship. Some organizations are focusing on, career growth conversations as a first release. Some are thinking more holistically about it. So you don't necessarily need to start eat the whole apple at once. You can take it bite by bite or whatever's right for your organization. But that might lead you to think, okay, how are these experienced within ServiceNow? We didn't want to just, release a bunch of applications with discrete experiences. So we created a few new experiences within or extended existing experiences to make this a holistic part of the employee journey. So within Employee Center Pro, there's a new page and a whole new layout and user experience directly for the employees called Career Hub. So that's where they will be able to set their aspirations, define their growth plans, their learning conversations, and more, as well as track the impact that they've made across their growth plans and their time growing within their career, as well as get proactive prompts and insights about what's next, refreshers to add any skills or capabilities, essentially give them one stop to manage their career directly within ServiceNow. We're also, of course, leveraging Manager Hub for the manager-specific experiences. So that we have for organizations that have growth experiences licensing, you can extend, Manager Hub to include things like team skills and insights, career conversations, growth plans, and more. So just like the employees have the Career Hub, managers have a Manager Hub experience to track all the different moving parts of managing the growth of their team. For leaders, we're really focused on aggregating that data at a macro level. So leaders are often tasked with identifying what is the opportunities for upskilling within our organization, what capabilities do we have within our organization to actually, drive business performance based off of the talent pools that we have within our organization. That's where Leader Hub comes into play. It offers insight into skills and development opportunities for their entire workforce. You can get details about, what's your engagement level with the learnings and the growth plans within your organization, as well as identify areas where we have strong skills, as well as areas that are need further improvement and development. So Leader Hub is really designed for that. The manager of managers, the directors, the VPs of HR or of the business that need to understand and get one place to view all the skills and capabilities of their organization in a quick and simple snapshot. Assisting with all of this is a new profile within ServiceNow, specifically, or excuse me, part of the career profile extends the employee profile so that they have the ability to track all of these specific skills and aspirations, goals, so on and so forth, directly in their existing employee profile. So a new data model tables to support this, but it extends that existing employee profile to make it seamless for these employees to have one place to go ahead and manage their experience, their day-to-day work items, as well as their career growth opportunities as well. And we can, of course, leverage things like proactive prompts to remind employees to populate their skill profiles. We even have integrations with our onboarding solution so that we can use AI to parse their resume as part of their employee onboarding to actually pre-populate and seed the skills directly into their profile. So it makes it easy to not start from scratch, but leverage AI to take the information directly from their resume to help them hit the ground running from a skills data management standpoint. And then on the back end, there is, as I was saying earlier, many organizations are thinking about skills at their organization. What capabilities or skills do my employees have or need to drive business performance and drive business outcomes? Well, since ServiceNow layers on top of many different systems, we need one workspace. So those HR teams can manage those skills as they're coming in, harmonize that data so there's not duplicative or bad data within there, and then actually track, the performance of their skill-based organization. So it's a modern admin experience, really designed to help with importing those custom skills, assigning skills to different user groups, and just manage the data hygiene aspects of a skills and job architecture. And it also, of course, it provides, just like any other workspace, analytics to help understand, what skills are being used, what areas need to be dived into, and if there's anything that needs to be updated or refreshed. And that leads to skills in general. So skills are an important data piece to those experiences, to those applications that we were talking about earlier. So the ability to have, excuse me, skills enhance those experiences. So drive recommendations in learning, jobs, mentorships, career profiles, as well as set those aspirations. And then managers can also, when you are leveraging skills data within ServiceNow, see the skills insights of their team, and leaders can see the skills of their entire organization. So we, from a skills standpoint, we are an agnostic system of engagement, whether it's your HCM, ATS, LMS, a standalone skills point solution. All of those can be aggregated and harmonized into ServiceNow to help actually build a skill-based organization through the day-to-day work life of our employees. So there's no ontology required. It's focused right now heavily on just pulling in that skills data, harmonizing it, and making sure that is actually helping employees with those applications and those experience we were discussing earlier. So there is also some support for job architecture data. So there is generally some baseline job architecture data that would come from an HCM or another source. And it's relatively straightforward. It can be in pretty much any state, and the data can be added as needed to ServiceNow. And again, we take a flexible structure to this to accommodate what sort of data our customers have from a job architecture standpoint. And so, as Melissa was talking about earlier, we do have some integrations for growth experiences. We have some out-of-the-box integrations with major HCMs, SuccessFactors, Workday, and Oracle. We have some out-of-the-box integrations with LMSs like Cornerstone, Udemy, SumTotal, SuccessFactors Learning, Workday Learning, so on and so forth. And we also can integrate with Credly for credentialing and Outlook and Microsoft Teams for those engagement layers as well. And I should say this is not necessarily holistic. We can there's other aspects of the out-of-the-box spokes and integrations through Workflow Data Fabric that ServiceNow can support as well. So I know we're up on time here. So what I just wanted to call out, if you want to learn more, we have product documentation live. We also have a refreshed, brand new community page site for HR service delivery, inclusive of all of the things that we've discussed today, as well as journeys, case and knowledge management. Everything for HR service delivery is now housed on one community page, and we have some quick links directly within there. We also have some new implementation quick start guides, product checklists, a deep dive blog from our Zurich release, as well as some frequently asked questions to help get you started. But of course, if you want to see a personalized demo or learn how you can take advantage of these by upgrading to HR Service Delivery Pro V6, well, just reach out to your ServiceNow account team. We're here to help. We're here to help you be successful. And finally, let's continue to leverage your impact and customer success teams to drive a better experience and help drive value faster, adopt solutions more quickly, and understand how you can get the most out of your ServiceNow investments. And with that, right up on the top of the hour, I want to thank everyone for your time this morning or this afternoon or this evening. We greatly appreciate everyone's continued involvement in the HR Service Delivery Academy series. And with that, I will let you go, and we will see you next month in our next session. Thank you all, and have a wonderful rest of your day.